Hi, everybody. We're going to talk about the introduction of your book. You can go ahead and stop this video and read it and come back, or you can watch this and then read it. And if you want, watch this again. I just want to chat about it a little bit so I communicate what I think is really important. So in a previous video, I talked about that these books that any professor of yours uses for class, they have some subjectivity to them. Even if it's a science textbook, the way in which the information is organized and presented is someone's opinion about how to best do that, even though the information that is presented, especially for the hard sciences, may be objective. So I wanted to point out that these guys, Cal Prittner and Scott Walters, talk about how to analyze a play in a way that is more than just following directions. Reading plays demands analysis and interpretation, and they contrast that to blueprints or recipes. Well, I have to say that I don't understand blueprints because that is not my area of expertise. But with a recipe, I am very well aware that there is a lot of analysis and interpretation involved in reading recipes. For instance, when I talk to my students about cooking, a lot of them are just learning this and they don't always know the difference between a head of garlic, ooh, she's got props, and a clove of garlic. And I heard these stories about how they were making some recipe and it called for 2 cloves and they put in 2 heads of garlic, right? That is analysis and interpretation, right? And it's having this base sort of vocabulary in order to make your recipe turn out well. Because I've been cooking for many decades, sometimes I read a recipe and I'm like, that's going to be trouble right there. I'm going to have to do something about that, right? And that's me analyzing the recipe and interpreting a part of it in which I sense a weakness. So I think that script analysis actually is a lot like recipes and blueprints, and maybe they just don't cook, these guys. So let's see. So pay attention to the part on page 2 about what play analysis is. They say it is purposeful, systematic, interpretive reading. So when you're done with this course, you're going to have a method, a system of reading plays rather than just picking it up, reading it, and thinking, what did I just read? Which is sometimes how we do it, especially with plays that might be complicated. So they divide this same page, page 2, into 3 parts. A reading has analysis, which is identifying the parts of a play. Interpretation, clarifying our understanding of those parts, which can be a little bit subjective depending on who you are, which is fine. And synthesis, which is, of course, bringing the parts together into a coherent whole. So this actually is a lot like a recipe. You have to analyze, you have to interpret, you have to synthesize. So pay attention to that. I hope that you have not read Glass Menagerie yet. Don't read A Raisin in the Sun yet. We're going to read that for our final. And these guys have a specific method they want you to use for your first reading. So hold off until we've read chapter 1 about how to read a play, and then you're going to know to read Glass Menagerie in a specific way. First impressions are really important. So in the introduction, they go through how the book is laid out. And if you're a person who really likes systems and likes knowing what to expect, go ahead and pay attention to that part. The first level, the second level, the third level, fourth, fifth. Oh, the fifth is it, right? And these are, they grow in complexity. It's about first impressions, the essence of drama, or what drama really is, which is action. The third level is gathering information. The fourth level is interpretation, which does involve some subjectivity. And the fifth level is synthesis, putting it all together. So they point out that because conflict is the essence of drama, the conflict resolution process we're going to learn functions as the play's core. What are the conflicts? How do the characters try to resolve them, and how can we as theater makers elevate those conflicts? You know, as an audience member, you like to watch conflict. We don't want to watch a character have a boring, ordinary day. We want to watch a character have a really, really hard day. That's what they're talking about. So, conflict analysis is the term that they use over and over in this book. Conflict analysis is how we are going to analyze these plays. It's the central tool we will use in building a statement that synthesizes your analysis. This is all going to make a lot more sense when we're done with the course. But I wanted you to get this in your head. So they say the conflict resolution process is the framework around which themes, ideas, and characters are unified. So keep that in mind. Conflict resolution process. Oops, hang on, I missed a page. Okay. So one of the things you're going to keep in mind is that we need to look at the given circumstances, which is a term created by this guy Stanislavski, who was sort of the father of contemporary acting technique. And as some of you know, given circumstances, those are the setting of the play. So for me, I am a woman in her 50s who was sitting in her house that I own. Well, the bank owns part of it, and I'm here in Springfield, Missouri, and my cat Scone is back there wondering why I'm talking so much. And I am employed to help lovely young people like you get smarter and be able to analyze and appreciate theater better in courses like this. And for those of you who are theater majors, I'm here to help you make better theater. But I just morphed from given circumstances into action, which is also called objective or want. So regarding the given circumstances, they point out that whatever that plays time and location, and it's very rare that you're going to be analyzing or you're going to be involved in a play that takes place when you are and where you are. So you're going to have to ask questions about what they know in this time and place that you don't know. Things like politics, economics, religion, ethnicity, family, cultural values, how those things affect the character's thinking, language, and behavior. A lot of you who are watching this right now are from the Midwest. This is my first time living in this part of the country, and I can tell you the culture is pretty different here from a lot of other places I've lived. So that is something to keep in mind, and learning about those things also helps you go from subjective to objective. You realize that what is normal for you is not normal, that's just your normal. So that's one of the things that we'll be doing when we read plays, is figure out what is their normal. And then I'm skipping to the 5th level synthesis, and I'm going to remind you conflict is the essence of drama. Conflict is the central tool you're going to use. I know I said that already. Play analysis is not a substitute for imagination. They give a shout out on page 6 to Zelda Fichandler, who is one of the sort of mothers of regional theater here in the United States. And she, I think, founded and then ran the Arena Stage in Washington, D.C. for a couple of decades. She has a quote about education and imagination, and I really want you to check that out. And she talks about how analysis and research and imagination have to go together, and you don't want to have those be out of balance. All right, and then before we finish, I want to talk about something really important, which is this guy, Aristotle. Old Greek guy living in ancient Greece a couple thousand years ago, and he was the first one to try script analysis. And what he did worked so well that now it's 2025 and I'm still talking about it. And we don't talk about it because he's an old dead white guy. We talk about it because it still works. It's pretty good stuff. So Aristotle wrote this essay called the Poetics. And it's really good if you continue in script analysis, playwriting, dramaturgy. You'll probably encounter this and read it, but I'm going to encapsulate it for you now, especially the 6 elements, which are very important for us to know and which they occasionally refer to in this book. In order of importance, Aristotle said the following elements are crucial for making good drama. And they are, where'd they go? I know they're over here somewhere. Yeah, here they are. Plot, character, thought, diction, music, spectacle. Plot, character, thought, diction, music, spectacle. Plot is not story. Plot is a verb. You can plot against someone or plot to fill in the blank, but you can't story. You have to add a verb to that, right? You can tell a story. You can ask for a story. You can explain a story, but story is not a verb. We, as theater artists, are interested in verbs, things that are active, things you do. So plot is the most important thing. A very close second is character, because characters make plot. Think about the character of you. You're a college student, you have goals in your life, and the character of you is going about plotting your life to achieve those goals in certain ways. But each of you listening to me right now is a different character. So the way you are plotting to achieve your goals is different for each of you. So plot and character are really, really closely related, but Aristotle decided that plot is a little bit more important. What thought means is the idea of a play, its deeper meaning, what it's really about. Often this is partially about what the lead character is trying to do. Since you're college students, you may be writing a thesis paper for certain classes like theater history or English class, right? And hopefully you know by now that what a thesis is a statement that is not obvious, right? Scone is a cat. That is not a thesis statement, it's an objective fact. Scone is the naughtiest cat I've ever known, right? That's a thesis. It's a statement to which someone could say, I don't know, prove it. And then I'm going to have to explain just how naughty she is, which is pretty naughty, right? So the thought is sort of the arguable idea of a show. Diction, we can interpret as language. You're listening to me yammer on right now about script analysis, and you're a professional student. So you listen to professors talk about stuff all day. Do we all use language the same way? She asked rhetorically. No, we don't. We all create sort of the play of a class in different ways. We use language in different ways, which also ties to character. Someone else might be talking to you about this very subject in a really different way from the way I'm talking about it right now. Plays are the same way. And the language of plays tells you a lot about what that play is and how it works. And characters' language also tells you a lot about who they are. More about that later. Music, well, if you are a musical theater major, you know that music is really important to storytelling. And we have music of a sort in plays as well. We can think of rhythm, like percussion is a kind of music, even though it doesn't depend on tone, except for xylophones, as much as other kinds of instruments like a clarinet. But rhythm is still music. So think about that with music. And then spectacle is the stuff you see. And I think they'll explain it in a slightly different way from what I'm about to say. But spectacle we can think of as the important visual elements. If there's any flying in a show, or what the costumes look like, or if there's some kind of special effect, something like that. So those are the poetics. One more time: plot, character, thought, diction or language, music, and spectacle. One of the most important things to remember about Aristotle and to think about when you're reading scripts and analyzing them is that characters are defined by their actions. You're all young adults, so you know sometimes people are hypocrites. We're all hypocrites sometimes, and recognizing that characters are complex like that helps us make deep, interesting theater. But often people you know and characters in plays are a little bit different from how they describe themselves or from what they say, right? So the way that we figure out who characters really are is to look at what they do, what they want, and how they try to get it. So keep that in mind as we go through this journey of analyzing plays. And then finally, the last two things I'm going to talk about are that they center on conflict, which they define as the struggle of the protagonist to overcome opposing forces. You're the protagonist in your life, right? Maybe you have some opposing forces that you struggle against. Maybe finances are a problem with you being in college, maybe getting up on time to go to your classes because you do something really late at night. You're the protagonist of your story. You have opposing forces. So we're going to look for that in the plays that we read as well. And in terms of the structure of plays, we're going to identify a structure through which typical dramatic conflicts move from their inciting moment, remember that phrase, to their resolution. And you know what it means if something resolves. Okay, go ahead and read the introduction. If you haven't, look for those things that I just talked about. And then I'll see you in chapter 1.